Welcome, book nerds. We're back. Today, I want to talk about my reread of Way of Kings. So, this book really revolves around Kaladin Stormblessed. Kaladin is one of the main characters in this book, and every book so far has revolved mostly around one character, and Way of Kings is certainly Kaladin's. Kaladin's book. He has a complete arc in this book. We are introduced to him when he's a leader of his squad, and he's this charismatic person that everyone wants to get behind. And suddenly, he's a slave, just right off the bat. We get several flashbacks of why he's a slave, several flashbacks of him as a child. You find out why he's storm blessed. But one of the great things of the way he is written is that you go through almost half the book, probably about like that, half the book before he even realizes what his power is or that he has power. And Brandon does these great little sprinklings of hints in the high storm. You don't quite get it. And Brandon is great that way. He's so good of just sprinkling those little tidbits out to you that you don't really get until you reread it. Though it dives into the other characters in the book, Dalinar, Shallan, and Adolin, and Yasna, it's really Kaladin's book. Now, in the prologue, we are introduced to the world, we're introduced to the magic system, and we are introduced to Szeth, the white assassin. And you just see that Szeth can call his shard blade and do all these great things, and you really dive into the magic system of the book. Now, it's not really the main characters of the book that I think are really the heroes or the people that you really want to get behind. In my opinion, it's the men of Bridge 4. It's the men that Kaladin brings into his protective hug. Brock and Teft, those characters are really the fun characters to read. They're so great. And watching the camaraderie of Kaladin and his Bridge 4 men, of bringing them up, because these were broken men. These were men that thought they were worth nothing. They were slaves. They were just supposed to die. Before Kaladin showed up, Bridge 4 had the highest loss of any bridge ever. He made sure those men did not die. He kept them alive, and he brought their spirits up. He fixed them. Brennan does foreshadowing so much in this book, and there's sprinkles of evidence. Now, Syl, she is fantastic. She's great. She really adds lightness to Kaladin's darkness, because Kaladin is a depressed person. He's a Croesus slave, and he's down in the dumps all the time, and Syl is there to bring him back up. She really cares for him. Dalinar, one of the most important characters in all of Stormlight Archive, and not a great backstory. Dalinar is not really the great man that you think he is. He is now. He's awesome, but he wasn't always like that, and you don't get that here. You just get hints of what he was like as a warrior, this great slaughterer. End of this book really ends with Kaladin just doing the right thing to protect Dalinar. He was going to sacrifice everything that he's built for Dalinar. Yes, he could take his men and run. The battle's going, no one's looking, but he needs to go and save Dalinar. And that's what he does. He takes his Bridge 4 crew and he charges in there and he saves him. And it is one of my favorite scenes. I love that scene. My summary of the Words of Radiance. The prologue jumps off Yasna hiring an assassin to kill Ellikar's wife. So this is really Shallan's book way more than Kaladin's. Here's where we get a first look at Pattern, Shallan's alter ego. And she really starts to light paint a lot more. Shallan draws Pattern to do the things that she's just not able to do. We get more visions with Dalinar from Stormfather, and it just starts hitting him more and more and more. It's really a part of his story. Now it's this point where Dalinar decides to reform the Knights Radiant. And then Szeth attacks Dalinar, and you get the great scene where Dalinar catches the sharp blades in his bare hands because he doesn't have a sharp blade at that point. And what a great scene. And you see Kaladin and Zeth like falling from the window, and they're like just fighting each other on the way down and lashing each other back and forth. And it's such a great written scene. You could visualize it so well. Then Yasna is assassinated. It's like, what? But of course, and we find out about Syl and why Syl is so important. Why the relationship that Syl has with Kaladin is so important. We find out the connection to Stormfather and the Khanid realm. And you find out she's a princess and that she was bonded before. And Shallan forms a living shard blade and goes after the leader of the group and kills him. We find out Moshe's involvement in the Ghost Bloods, and he tries to bring Kaladin in, and Kaladin has to make a choice of what direction he wants to actually go. We find out about how damaged Shallan is, and even though she's so damaged, she still wants to help people. So Kaladin meets Moshe and the assassins. We dive deeper into Shallan's childhood, and by the end of the story, we get some amazing reveals about her origin. The duel that will bring forward my favorite scene, the scene where Adolin is going against 4 opponents, and Kaladin has to save him. And Kaladin jumps in and helps Adolin defeat all these. But then at the end, they like betray each other, and now they can't trust each other. It's just like so frustrating, man. So by the end of part 4, Kaladin is in a really dark place and still pulls away from him. She's going forward with her progression, and Kaladin is like sinking backwards, and he's losing his power because he's had to do things that take him away from being a Radiant, and so he's just like devastated in who he is. We find out Shallan's deepest, darkest secret, that she killed her mother in self-defense, and her father like covered up for her and protected her, which is something we've never heard about before because her father was always this abusive person. The Amaran and Kaladin confrontation, Shallan and Navani working together. Kaladin tries to protect Alucard. Dalinar asks Stormfather for help, but he denies and says that he'll bring a high storm after the war and he'll sweep all the bodies away. That's the best he can do. Kaladin says the third ideal, protecting those you hate. At this point, there are hundreds of battles raging all over the place. Zeth shows up and tries to kill Dalinar again, and the bridge foremen are trying to defeat Zeth, and Zeth is just whooping their butt all over the place. That's when Syl goes to Stormfather and says, "I claim him. I bond to Kaladin." And she's finally back with Kaladin, and she is his honor blade. And Zeth is like defeating everybody, and Kaladin drops out of the sky with Stormlight and Syl as his blade, and they battle. And he defeats Zeth. Shallan activates the Oathgate, and the storm envelops Zeth and carries him away. Zeth gets Nightblood. Let's destroy some evil. And Adolin kills Sadeas. Such a great moment. That guy is finally dead. Dalinar binds Stormfather as his spren. This is going to be such a big deal going forward. And in the perfect Brandon Sanderson fashion, the epilogue gives us the return of Yasna. Yeah. Oathbringer reread. Okay, kicking off, Dalinar is full Knights Radiant now, and he has his visions with Stormfather. So, in his visions, he sees the unmade, the spren of Odium. And when he comes out of said vision, he is confronted with the fact that Sadeas is now dead. Dalinar marries Navani. So his dead wife has been completely removed from his memory altogether. You just blocked it all out, and you're going to figure out why later. So we flash back several times to Dalinar at war. The younger Dalinar, the great soldier who all he cared about was killing. And he was good at killing. We see the beast that he was on the battlefield and the asshole that he was at home. And he was such a badass at killing. He actually killed an assassin that was coming for him just to take the assassin's knife and sit down at the table at the feast and eat with the killer's knife like nothing had ever happened. We discover what is Dalinar's thrill, his warlike frenzy, because when he goes into his frenzy, he has no idea what he's doing. He just sees red and he just kills everybody. And he is regretful afterwards, but it's like his mind takes over. So when Dalinar tries to call Stormfather into one of his visions, it's Odium that comes to him. And Odium is godlike power. More power than anyone can stand. Okay, here we get the Rift flashback. And if you've read the book, you know what I'm alluding to. The Rift was a horrible scene from his life. It was one of his seeing red moments where he's just going in and killing, and they tried to trap him. They said, hey, everybody's over there in those mountain ranges, and he went over there and they tried to bury him in an avalanche. And of course, Dalinar, it didn't work, and it was like nothing to him, and he came out with this rage and went to kill everyone in this village, unbeknownst to him that his wife actually went to that village, and he burned the entire village down, murdering his own wife. This is the moment that ruined his life. Kaladin goes off to talk with the Parshmen, and he actually starts to develop a bond with them. They get closer. And then, of course, the brooding person that he is, he gets conflicted. Big surprise. He has internal conflict. That is so out of character for Kaladin. Now we find Tef about to kill himself. He is addicted to fire moss, and he's having some hardcore addiction issues with this. Kaladin and Rock nurse Tef back together as well as they can. Now we are on to Shallan and her Stormlight abilities. So it's here that she creates another personality named Radiant. And Radiant is an interesting personality. When she created Veil to investigate things in dangerous situations, but now she's created Radiant to really be the warrior side of herself. And these said personalities are all over the place in this book. There's so many chapters. There's Radiant chapters, there's Veil chapters, there's Shallan chapters. And you have to remind yourself that these are all Shallan chapters because they're all her. Cal and everyone else fly to Kholinar. Shallan creates disguises for everyone, which is a really funny thing for her to do because the disguises really kind of show how she sees people. Like, Kaladin is this just creepy old man, and Adolin is this hot-looking young guy. Now, Shallan finally pulls all the versions of herself back together, and she shares the information that she gained in her investigations about the Unmade. So there are two Unmade. There are two Unmade that is corrupting the Spren, and that's why they're acting so strangely, because they're being corrupted by the Unmade. Final battle. So, here we go. Odium arrives to unleash the Parshmen. The Parshmen has a weapon that will unleash the thrill upon everyone in Emiram's army. The word on everyone's mind is to kill Dalinar, take revenge for Sadeas's death, even though it wasn't Dalinar that killed him, but it's Dalinar they want to kill. And a possessed Thrill Emerald army is out for blood. And Dalinar starts to feel that old thrill take him again. The thrill that made him kill his own wife. The thrill that made him slaughter so many people. That's the thing about Dalinar. People say that the thrill made him do it, and that he had no, that he wasn't in his mind. It was that it just took over, and he was somebody else, and it was that thing that made him kill all those people. Like, no, this was Dalinar. This was Dalinar's rage that took over and made him kill all those people. He knows that, and he is suffering from that. Now we have Szeth. Szeth returns. The assassin in white is now a good guy. How awesome is that? An assassin in white with night blood. Now Dalinar meets with Odium, and they agree to a contest of champions. But the thing is, Dalinar is chosen as a champion for Odium. To what? Fight himself? The thrill floods into Dalinar, exploding Stormfather from him. Stormfather was his spren, and now he's gone. Szeth is slaughtering Emerald's army with Nightblood. He's just cutting people down. Shallan, Cal, and Adolin flee through a nearby Oathgate, but they're soon surrounded. Kaladin is surrounded by the fused, and he's unable to say the words. It's here that Cal is overcome by grief of the death of his brother, and he's unable to say the words, and the fused move in on him. Dalinar refuses Odium, and Stormfather finally is returned to him. Dalinar says the next oath. The honor perpendicularity fills the night sky, lighting up everything. Now, all of the Knights Radiant rally behind Dalinar. Cal finds himself inspired, and then he fights the big fight. He fights the big fight with Emerald himself. Dalinar is deep in the thrill. Kaladin is being attacked by Fused and Emerald at the same time. It's Rock with the wind. He shoots Emerald with a shard bow. What just happened? Now Dalinar has imprisoned the thrill into a ruby. So now we got Moash killed Elhokar. Jasnah is now queen because, well, she's fucking awesome. Shallan marries Adolin, and that's the end of the battle, but not the end of the war. So, read fantasy.